G'day, I'm Paul. So the Toyota LandCruiser 300 series has finally lobbed. We reviewed the VX a little while back, but it's time to review the one that I think a lot of you guys have been asking about, and it is the GR Sport. It's probably the one that I'm most excited about driving as well, because it's got all of the off-road equipment and it kind of looks pretty cool. The GR Sport sits one down from the top specification in Australia, and it's priced from just under $140,000. If that's too expensive, the whole range kicks off at just under $90,000. Now this competes with things like the Nissan Patrol. That's one of its biggest arch nemesis, the new Range Rover, and also the Land Rover Defender. So there's a few of those meaty off-roaders in this segment. This one, of course, being just 5-seat only, unlike the others, which are available in 7 seats. Today, we're going to do a detailed review of this car. So if you do want to skip ahead to other parts of the review, you can use the time codes up on the screen there, or if you're on YouTube, scroll down and use the chapters below. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel, press the bell icon. That'll tell you every single time we drive a car with white lettering. Now, before we get stuck into design, we've done this video a little bit differently. We've broken out the off-road section. We have a full off-road review of this. So the link is in the description below. Don't click on it just yet. Wait till you watch the rest of this and then you can watch the off-road review. So you can pick 7 exterior colors with the GR Sport, all but black and white, almost $700 extra. Now, the GR Sport looks very different to the rest of the LandCruiser range because you've got, sportiness to it. So they've gone with white lettering along the front here, and then you have unpainted bumpers on the front and rear. I did notice though, don't know if this build quality is amazing. This bumper's kind of hanging off up the top here. The paint's coming off it as well. I don't know if that's just because this is one of the media cars that's been doing a lot of off-roading, but it's only got like 2,000 Ks on it. But anyway, so in terms of the rest of the design, outside of your white lettering, you've got that piano black grille there, radar just underneath the Toyota lettering with a camera there for the 360 camera. And then right down the bottom, you've got this silver garnish highlight. Up here, you've got a GR badge, Gazoo Racing. This is what they've fitted to the Supra and also the GR Yaris as well. So you'll see that featured on a whole lot more Toyotas moving forward. They might even do a sportier version of this with more power and torque, but as it stands, this has the same engine configuration as the rest of the range. Over here, you've got a set of LED headlights. So it's a bi-LED headlight setup, LED daytime running lights, and also progressive indicators. This is also kind of different here with the GR Sport. You can see they've got these openings down the bottom for cooling, but then they're closed up the top there. Headlight washers, I've mentioned in our other off-road videos that these are really useful if you're doing a whole lot of off-roading, especially in muddy and wet terrain. You can get water come up above the headlight here and cover that. Once it dries, the headlights become ineffective, so this blasts it all away so you can actually see what you're doing. One of the downsides to these unpainted bumpers is you can see it's scratch marks along here. They're going to be pretty obvious when you do off-roading and you have any trees or brush scrubbing up against the car. That stuff is a little hard to get off once it does scratch and mark. Around the side here, you've got a set of 18-inch alloy wheels with all-terrain tyres. I do like the alloy wheel design. The dark theme really suits all of these black sections with GR Sport. And then you've got these plastic wheel arch guards along the top there. So pretty nice setup and a whole lot of profile there as well if you're going to be doing some off-road driving. Side steps, I think these could be perhaps a little better. They're kind of a little bit cheap looking. And I think that if you were to attack those with some rocks, that's probably going to bend pretty easy. I'd love to see something like the Ford Ranger Raptor here, where it's got those sort of full metal side steps that stick out and you can actually attack with rocks. Piano black on that wing mirror, LED indicator, and then beneath there, you've got a little camera as well. Another GR logo. Got these black roof rails, privacy glass, black door handles, and then whip around to the rear. You have a shark fin aerial hiding along the top there, LED tail lights. So this is all LED, also progressive indicator there. Another GR Sport badge. Black LandCruiser lettering, more of that black garnish down the bottom there. Some of you pointed out in our last video, because I read through all of the comments and found it interesting that a lot of people were upset about the split tailgate disappearing. So they've kind of made it look like it's still here with that crease line, but it's definitely just a single piece tailgate, unfortunately. Let me know what you reckon in the comments section below about the GR specifically. Do you think that this is the LandCruiser to get, or are you going to go for the Sahara because, you know, you want to kick back in style? So around the LandCruiser, let's start off with the key. So you've got lock, unlock, boot, you've got a panic button, Toyota logo down the bottom, a little bit of garnish there as well. Then on the back you have a GR symbol, proximity sensing, so leave that in your pocket. Once you're inside, you have this giant GR stop start button up the top there. In terms of the design, I think it looks pretty good. Like it's, I don't know, it's a big departure from the old LandCruiser, and I guess that's probably not saying much given it was like 11 years old or even older in terms of that sort of fascia down the center there. But I think this really modernizes Land Cruiser, and it's a pretty good sort of setup there with the big screen up the top there. And you can see with the materials, they've actually gone to a lot of effort here to make this look and feel quite premium. You've got this nice looking open pore wood grain along the center and the doors too. And then over on the driver's side, this is all nice and soft, so when you're driving, you can just relax your knee on there without it getting fatigued. GR Sport comes with pretty cool design elements on the seat, so you've got GR stitched into the top there, and then you have the red and black theme as well with the red along the center there. What about your touch points? So kind of okay there, a little firm and pretty soft on the door there. How soft are they? Well, we've got our gyrometer, we've tested the main surfaces in this cabin. If you want to see how this car compares to others that we've tested before, have a look at the link in the description. Build quality, well, aside from the bumper bar that was hanging off out the front there, the rest of this actually feels nice and solid. And the door test. Sounds good to me. Now, let's talk about infotainment. So it's all controlled on this screen up the top here. There's also some shortcut buttons down the bottom. They're nice and metallic, cold to the touch. Up the top here, it is all a touch screens. It's split into these two sections. So you've got the left-hand side and then the right-hand side, and you can move them to the opposite sides if you want to. Inbuilt into here, you have AM, FM, DAB plus digital radio, and that's all powered through a 14-speaker JBL branded sound system. It's actually a pretty decent sound system. I'm quite impressed by it. You do also have smartphone mirroring in the form of Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I'll show you what Apple CarPlay looks like. So you can see here it doesn't take up the full screen. It's sort of just relegated to this area. It seems like a tiny bit laggy there, but you know, for the most part it's okay. I just wish you could option, you know, the ability to make that bigger if you wanted to, because I think this stuff is more important and it's better to be displayed larger. And this is what Android Auto looks like. Same story again, not full screen and ever so slightly laggy there as well. Ahead of the driver is another digital display. Over here you've got just some basic stuff about the car, but it's really useful when it comes to switching between some of the safety features. So you've got digital speedo, you've got a lot of the safety systems, audio, navigation, but then with the safety systems you can easily switch between those and turn them off as required. So good little screen, and it's also good for off-roading, which you'll be able to see in our off-road review. Now, safety, you have autonomous emergency braking that works forwards and reverse and detects pedestrians and cyclists. You've got an auto-dimming rear vision mirror, rear cross traffic alert. You've also got a radar cruise control, lane departure warning, and a lane keeping assistant in the form of a brake pulsing setup. Blind spot monitoring built into that wing mirror. And then in terms of parking, you have both front and rear parking sensors and a 360 camera. I'll show you what that looks like. It beeps if I put it into reverse. So I'm going to start the car quickly. So you've got a couple of different modes here for the camera. So I'll hit this button, that will bring up our first one. So it's kind of like a showcase of what's going on around the car, particularly handy if you are off-road or if you're parking near other objects. You then have this top-down view of the car as well. And then when you do pop it into reverse, you get your full 360. So the quality is actually not too bad. So you can see Igor's car there. And then as I move the steering wheel, it adjusts all of those lines, including the forward moving lines. And you can also adjust those views as well. There is also a multi-terrain monitor for off-road driving as well. Okay, quick question. So if you're looking at buying one of these or a Patrol, could you justify spending about $40,000 or more extra for one of these over a Patrol? I'm keen for your feedback. Let me know down there. If the sort of wait times weren't an issue, let me know. So let's talk about practicality, and we'll start with your connectivity. So you have a 12-volt outlet down here. You have a USB-C port, a USB-A port, and that's all hidden behind this little sort of door there, so when they're not in use you can tuck that away. You have a wireless phone charger. In terms of storing your phone, well, you can whack it down there on the wireless phone charger. It fits a big phone inside its case, which is good news, or you can pop your phone down here. There's sort of no dramas there at all. And in terms of your coffee, they have catered for everyone here, because if you pop it in the left one it kind of disappears and it's a little hard to grab. But in the right one you've actually got this adjustable height, so you can pop that in, and then once that's inside, your coffee can sit in there and it is super easy to reach out even if you have a small one, which is pretty cool. Bottles, same story, fits into both of these without any dramas. You've got teeth on the side there. Bottle fits into the door too. Let's try our big bottle. Ugh. Look at that, that fits in there. We'll see if it fits inside the door. No, that's a shame. I would have thought that'd fit in there nicely, but Anyway, on other storage, you have this center console. Watch this. So it opens that way, and it opens that way as well. Inside the center console, you have a fridge, but when the fridge isn't in use, it's like the most random, awkward little space because it's quite sort of thin and then quite deep. So, you know, it works okay, but yeah, not the best sort of setup there in the world. You have a glove box over here, not too bad. It's dual tiered there, but a lot of the space is taken up by the manual once it's in there. And finally, you have a sunglasses holder up the top. Now, what about comfort? So you have dual zone automatic climate control up the front here. You have heated and cooled seats. You've got a heated steering wheel. In addition to that, you've got your sunroof up the top there. The seats, so they are pretty comfy. There's plenty of room on either side. So if you like KFC as much as I do, you're going to find the seats pretty good. Seats have electric adjustment for both the driver and front passenger. So you can go forwards, backwards, backrest, forwards, backwards. You can put the seat up and down, and then you also have bolster support as well. So plenty of adjustments there. Steering wheel is electrically adjustable, up, down, in and out. And then on the reach test, all of this is fine, but I did find this morning when I was driving here, I was trying to change radio stations and they just counterintuitively appear in this giant list that you have to scroll through. So it is just a little bit tedious having it up there and having no controls down here to drive it. Second row of the LandCruiser. So you've got a grab handle to climb on in or to hold on. My wife's driving. Knee room is reasonable. Toe room is not great. My sort of toes are wedged under there for some reason. Headroom is pretty decent. You have your air vents wedged in up the top here with another grab handle up there if you need it. Down the bottom here, you've got your third and fourth zone of climate for the second row. There's also heated and cooled seats for the two outboard seats, which is pretty cool. You have USB-C ports hidden under these little hidey holes, a 12-volt outlet, two map pockets in the back of the seats. You've got a center armrest here that drops down, and under here you've got two cup holders. They hold the bottle in pretty easily. And then this also fits inside the door. You've also got two ISOFIX points on the outboard seats with three top tether points. It is a little bit disappointing that this second row doesn't slide forwards or backwards, given this is only a 5-seater. So it would be nice to have a little bit of extra room there. You can recline this, but I don't know, I just think they could have used this space and engineered it just a little bit better. Let's talk cargo space. So because the GR Sport is just 5 seats, it means you get slightly more cargo space than the 7-seat models. That means a little over 1,100 litres available just here. You get a little bit of underfloor storage. Yeah, it's kind of weird. I would have thought there'd be more sort of underfloor storage, given that you don't have the 7 seats in the way of things. So yeah, I don't really know where they make up for that room. Beneath the car is where your spare tyre is, but it is worth pointing out something that one of our commenters actually mentioned. The fuel filter is right next to the spare tyre. So if you do want to fit a bigger spare tyre in there, I don't know that it will actually fit with the fuel filter in that position. You've got hooks down the side here. You have a power outlet, but 100 watt. I mean, it's not really a great deal you can power with 100 watts, so I think it's just as a novelty item. And then you still have hangovers from the 7-seat setup with like air vents and cup holders on the side. So yeah, it's kind of odd that they don't even give you the option of putting 7 seats in here. But let's see what it looks like with our bags in. So there's one in there. Pop this one in as well. So as you can see, stacks of room in there. Then what you can also do to expand the space is drop that second row. So I'll just fold that out of the way so you can see what it looks like. Once that's out of the way, you have about 2,000 litres of cargo space available. So we've hit the road in the LandCruiser GR Sport. Now, if you have seen our VX review, it's all going to be very familiar, but I'll run you through the engine specs anyway. It's a 3.3 litre turbocharged V6 diesel now. So they've dropped the V8, that's gone. It is now a V6 across the range, and it produces 227 kilowatts of power and 700 Newton meters of torque. So it's a nice and meaty, hearty engine. It produces more power and torque than the outgoing V8 as well. So kind of just shows you how far we've come in terms of engine technology. That's all mated to a 10-speed automatic transmission. And I've got to tell you, this engine and transmission combo is fantastic. If you're worried about the V8 going and not having enough punch to do stuff, nothing to worry about. Like if I just give this a little kick here, it gives you a nice push in the back and gets you moving. It is just a good package and it really suits this chassis. And then in terms of the transmission itself, it's actually nice and sharp and crisp. Being a 10-speed auto, I was a bit concerned about this wanting to hunt a lot of the time, but when you get stuck into it, it drops back into the right gear. There isn't a great deal of lag. There is a little bit of lag, but it's nothing sort of astronomical. and then it can also push onto that torque band to get it moving without having to dive back through the gears as well. So it's a really good setup. No paddle shifters though, you have to use just your gear lever if you want to rifle back through the gears. Toyota claims that the LandCruiser will consume 8.9 litres of fuel per 100 k's. We are currently sitting on 12.1, so fair way off that. And I remember when we drove the other car, despite it being brand new, it was still higher than the average claim as well. And this car's been doing predominantly highway driving as well, so a little disappointing there in terms of fuel use. Now, Toyota doesn't give us a 0 to 100 time, but we've put it up against our stopwatch, and this is how it went. Let's talk about some of the specs. Now, normally we would do an off-road review in this review, but what we've decided to do is break out the off-road review so you can get a far more detailed look at each of the off-road features in this car, because there are a lot of them. So if you want to watch that, click up here, but I'll give you just the basic overrun now. So you have high and low range four-wheel drive. This is a permanent four-wheel drive system, so you don't have the ability to go into two-wheel drive mode. You have a center, front and rear differential lock. In addition to that, you have cruise control and also turn assist. So they use variations of those diff locks and braking inner wheels to actually tighten the turning circle as you're going through your off-road tracks. Then when it comes to ground clearance, you have 235mm, which is 10mm more than the previous generation LandCruiser. You've got a 32-degree approach angle, which is the angle of the face you can approach before you hit the front of the car, a 25-degree departure angle, and a 700mm weighting depth. And that's all in addition to a 3.5-ton braked towing capacity. So it is pretty well featured there in terms of off-road equipment. And when we did test it off-road, it was actually quite impressive how far it could go. So if you are serious about your off-roading, the GR Sport is the one that you want to go for. Let's talk about drive modes. The key difference here with the GR Sport to the VX that we drove is that this has a stack of different suspension technology beneath the skin. So this uses adaptive damping, and we've seen something similar in Prado, the top spec of Prado, but the adaptive damping system is certainly new to me in LandCruiser, and I think that what they've done here is actually given this another character altogether. So you've got your drive mode selector up the top here. You can flick between Eco, Comfort, Normal, Sport, Sport Plus. Hold on, we've got Sport S and then Sport S Plus, and then Custom. So there's a whole bunch of drive modes there. Eco is obviously the mode where they sort of dull everything down to reduce the amount of fuel that you're using. Comfort really softens up the ride to the point where this feels completely different to the VX that we drove. I'm genuinely surprised how they've been able to make it feel so comfortable in comparison. The VX wasn't terrible, but this really smooths it out beautifully. And even on these country sections of road where we've got big potholes and then washaways on the side of the road, it is just soaking everything up really nicely. And then as you move through Normal, Sport and Sport S Plus, it just gets a lot firmer. And that's also linked to eKDSS, which is fitted standard to the GR Sport. Instead of the old KDSS system, this uses an entirely electric system, and it has the front and rear sway bars operate through that system. And when you start entering a corner and getting a bit of body roll, it's able to firm up those sway bars to level out the body. And it means that this, in theory, should feel a whole lot sportier when we go punt it through a couple of corners. And then when you do drive off-road, it disconnects those sway bars effectively to give you a further wheel articulation, because that's often the limitation of a sway bar on these four-wheel drives. Now let's talk steering. I'm a little bit disappointed that Toyota's gone down the path of hydraulic steering. It is very old technology, and we've seen in many four-wheel drives now that they have proven that EPAS, the electrically assisted steering systems, work perfectly fine. Toyota does something a little different here though. So this is a hydraulic rack with an electric assistant. I don't really know what that means. It feels very hydraulic to me. There's no real sort of electric assistance feeling to it, but it allows them to run things like the trace assistant for lane departure. But it's one of those systems that just pulses the brakes. It doesn't really sort of guide the car back into the lane, and it can get really intrusive while you're out on the open road. Okay, so let's go into Sport S Plus. We'll pop it through the corner here. I'm keen to see how it feels with the KDSS system working. Yeah, look, it's interesting. I don't really notice that much of a difference. There is still a fair bit of body roll as you go through the corner. I'm sure it is working in the background there, but it's not quite as quick or sharp as some of the vehicles we've seen with 48-volt mild hybrid systems, where they can actuate that lift far quicker, and it means that it does level out the corner a whole lot easier. This probably takes a little longer to respond to that input. Hey everyone, sorry to interrupt the video. We just realized when we were reviewing the footage that the GR Sport actually had quite a lot of body roll. So what we did was we pulled footage from our VX review and overlaid it and realized that the GR Sport is actually kind of worse than the VX in terms of the way that it performs through a corner. So the VX doesn't have any adaptive damping or any of that KDSS technology. So it does seem like the KDSS in the GR Sport was perhaps faulty, or if it's meant to work that way, I don't really understand what the purpose of it is, because it seems to increase body roll as opposed to decrease it. So yeah, apologies for the interruption, but we just thought we'd point that out. In terms of road noise, it's a pretty quiet place to be seated. Even out on coarse chip country roads, it's fairly quiet. There is a little bit of wind noise, but you don't get a huge amount of tyre noise intruding into the cabin. Let's talk visibility. So this is a big old rig, but it's actually not too bad to see out of. The bonnet has these giant divots in it that I remember from the 200 series, like water would collect in the centre there if you had it parked on a slight incline and it was frosty overnight. But it does mean that you can see down the fronts of the car. The wing mirrors are huge, so you can clearly see down the side. You've got a blind spot monitor built into those. Visibility out the back is pretty good as well. And in terms of your low speed stuff, you've got front and rear parking sensors, and the steering is light enough for low speed parking. And then in addition to that, you have an 11.8 metre turning circle. So pretty big, but to be expected for a vehicle like this that is a full-time four-wheel drive. So the Toyota LandCruiser. Now, if you haven't seen our off-road review of this, click up here to watch it now. It's a pretty beastie thing with front and rear diff locks. It'll virtually go anywhere. And I think in essence, that's what the GR Sport does above and beyond other vehicles in the LandCruiser range. And I don't really understand why you can't option some of the off-road equipment that this has in other LandCruiser models. So from that point of view, this is incredibly capable. One thing we did pick up though, and we did notice this with the first LandCruiser we drove, we didn't really mention anything because I assumed it was limited to the car that we drove. It was brand new, still had only just been pre-delivered and that kind of thing, but it is a suspension or steering knock, and this is what it sounds like. So I think it is something that is going to be common across LandCruisers. We have sent it across to Toyota and asked them to investigate. When I do hear back from them, I will update and pin a comment down below so you can get a better idea of what it is. But it is pretty disappointing that in what is effectively a brand new car, we're hearing this knocking sound across several vehicles. If you put that stuff to one side, the engine is sensational. This is really nice to drive with the adaptive suspension as well. So as a cruiser, it does a really impressive job. It is expensive though, so I don't know whether you would pay, what, $40,000 above a Nissan Patrol to get this, but if you've got some money to burn, it's definitely going to put a smile on your face. Now, let me know in the comments section below, have you ordered a LandCruiser? I also want to know which other LandCruiser variants you want us to review. Do you want us to do a Sahara, or do you want us to go down to the bottom end of the range? Let me know down there in the comment section. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you share it with your mates, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. But until next time, take it easy.